Hey Parts, after discussing the Hunter with some of the TFC panelists on chat, we kind of came up with a couple possible builds that I'd like to share with you. As you see, there's still one or two specials we're not sure what to do. So let's take a look at the Hunter. Let me clear up this fang tooth from here and pick the Hunter Mk1. So this is the ship. It has a very good concussive reload bonus. It has good anti-mortar range as it's a surface ship. Those mortars from the gluttonies we saw in the target, they will hurt. So these two slots are only for countermeasure. It has a small splash bonus and big concussive damage bonus. Okay, it starts with low resistances and some people are saying, oh, that's not as good as the Tideseeker. But after you see the build, you understand it better. I have a table showing how this number ends. The only thing is, for this ship to be effective, you will need a complete fleet. And the reason being the special ability. I mean, for each ship in the fleet, you get extra 30% concussive defense, explosive defense, ship deflection, 200, and 40% splash damage reduction. This is all very, very important. So, you know, get 4 built right now and then either build a 5th or wait for the flagship, which is what I'm gonna do. Another point people are talking about is the fact that it doesn't have thermal. So being a sub hunter without thermal, it's really weird. But the reality is we don't need thermal for the raid target. So, and being that that's pretty much the only use for this ship, it works. Just don't expect it to be a real sub hunter on the map, on PvP. You know, it's gonna suck for that. The flagship for the Tideseeker is still a lot better because it can see phantom subs on map. And as far as I know, the Hunter flagship won't have that ability, but remains to be seen. So let's start with the weapons. Countermeasure first. Here's my idea. I'm gonna put a Gale 2. I could put a Gale 3, but it's too heavy. I tested that. And a Hail D. And you're gonna say, why? Well, this gives me a double hit, right? So this guy has longer range and higher accuracy, so it's always going to fire first. Okay, and because it has higher accuracy, it's going to take more mortars from the gluttonies down. But it has a slow reload time of 5 seconds. Okay, it gets better when you rank the ship, but still 5 seconds reloading. Even if you get a quarter of that, it's still 1.25 seconds. Enter the Hailstorm D. That has 3.55 seconds, and it's going to only kick in if mortars get past the first layer of Gale. So longer range, higher accuracy, slower reload, supplemented by shorter range, bit lower accuracy, but much faster reload. Okay, so that's my combo. That times 4 or 5 ships should be interesting. And we'll talk more about the special selection for that later. But remember, it already has 50% and extra range. Okay, so making this guy working at 62 range and this one at 88. Next up will be choosing weapons. So the best weapon is available in price pack 2 of the Hunter Games DLC, and it's the Houndstooth Depth Charge. That's by far the best weapon you can select. It has over 6,000 base damage and 3 salvo for reload, and does the same damage underwater. Okay. Second best option is the Garwood, primarily because it has the longest range of the available options. Okay, but the Garwood does a lot less damage and it has the same reload, so it is a lot weaker. It will get better as it winds up, but the damage per shot still a lot lower. Some people are talking about using that scattergun that has high concussive damage. Let me pick it up here. It's the Calamity scattergun. Here's the problem. Look at the concussive damage statistic there. it's not part of the submerged damage. So you see there's a corrosive damage of 2700, an extra concussive damage of 4000, and then submerged damage goes back to 2700, which is the corrosive damage. So against the Scourge, that weapon is a huge mistake. If you have Tide Seekers with Calamity today, they shouldn't do well against these targets because most of the enemies will be underwater. You hit them on the surface, some of them do, but most of the time they are underwater. So I wouldn't go with that. So let's go back to the Depth Chargers, and I'm gonna pick the Houndstooth, and that's the one we're gonna put on every single available slot here. See, it's still not too heavy. At that point, you have a 5-day build time for base, hull, and weapons. Okay, so next up, let's take a look at specials. So the first special, beyond any doubt, beyond any question for now, it's the best option, is Ablative Armor 3. Until Kixeye releases a special, and I believe they will, but until they release a special that's half explosive, half concussive defense, that's the only natural choice. Okay? The second natural choice is a special to buff concussive damage. Okay, and it's different from the new special. So the new special, the PBX payload, if you got it from Price Pack 3, great, you put it there. It does not give you any extra damage on the regular shots. It just gives you 100% extra damage on critical shots and a 20% chance at critical shots, which is very good. So definitely use that one if you have it. Okay, but still you need a special to buff regular damage. And we have a few options. So my first thought was to go and use the Strike Warheads because they give me 55% extra damage. Okay, then I remember there was the one that came out with the Tide Seeker, and I always have a hard time finding it, so I kind of memorized for the video. Here, Advanced Concussive Payload gives you a bit less extra damage, it's only 50%, not 55%, but gives you extra 30% reload, which more than makes up for the 5% delta. So that's the special you want right now for damage and reload. Okay, and it goes along with the PBS nicely. Now the last three specials, we debated a lot about them, and there is no single version of truth. You ask George and a few other people on the Forsaken Council, they would go with Magnus Drive 3 and make this ship really fast. I mean, it's still not as fast as the Fangtooth that goes up to 63, stays at 52. But then again, this guy is supposed to be the tank, low skill ship that will tank damage well. And that's why I was thinking, you know, I should probably take care of this concussive defense and sacrifice speed. So I think George is going with this, and I'm going with hydraulic resistors. I mean, it helps a lot on the concussive defense. You do lose significant amount of speed, but that's what I'm taking a risk here with that. And just as George is taking a risk with the lower defense and faster speed. It's also down to driving style. I know a lot of people had their Phoenixes with Magnus Drive 2, and I had my Phoenixes with Speed 5. They were slower, but I was happy with them. And I know people who had Mag 2 were happy with it too. So might not be a make or break choice here. Remains to be seen. We don't know for sure right now. So next, last two specials, very hard choice. You could go evade, and we don't know if that's necessary. Most of the damage in the targets are splash based, from mortars, from scatterguns, from depth charges. We're still looking to see if how much torpedo damage there is in that target. That's accuracy based, so I am not going to put an evade special right now. That could be a splash special instead. I'm leaving that blank, but we definitely do need a splash buffing special. And so here again the discussion is you could go with expanded fulmination and get plus 75% splash, minus 5% spread. Kind of works well, it's a good choice. It's a heavy special though at 30% weapon weight penalty. Okay, works with the splash and spread you have in here. Another choice that's a little bit lighter, but will give you more spread, it may or may not be a good thing, as you don't have a bunch of ships grouped up in these targets, they're mostly spread. But Combustion System 2 could be a choice. Pretty much the same splash as the Fulmination. A lot more spread, which I don't like, but some people are going for it. Like we were discussing, some guys in the TFC panel were going for it. Some are not sure, so it's a risk. And here you gain some projectile speed. The other choice, and it's the lightest one, is Explosive System 4. You gain only 62% splash. You concentrate fire a bit more, so your spread goes from 100 down to 80. But you gain a lot of projectile speed, which usually helps a lot. So I am inclined to use Explosive System 4 for the time being, but I will test that later on. So again, this is a preliminary build, okay? Either I'm gonna put that or leave it blank. And still, whichever special I choose here, I may only use it on 3 of the ships, because one thing I wanna do on some of them is to add, once I get it, because I still don't have it, but countermeasure loaders for. Why? Because you get 25% extra concussive reload. That's a huge difference. And your anti-mortars will have much longer range and a lot more accuracy as well. So at least a few ships I plan on putting this, 2 or 3 of them. And I may replace one of these 2 specials with an evade special if I find out that evade is critical. Right now we don't know. Okay? So that's it for now. Remember, here could be evade, or this special could go here, and you know, we'll see. If you don't have PBX payload, I would suggest you go again with a splash special, or you could pick concussive upgrade and get a little bit extra damage. Okay, do not use resonance capacitor or resonance battery on these ships, because they do not have an aura that triggers resonance, so that would be a wasted special. Okay, and that's it. I mean, there's no other specials here that would apply to this situation. It's either splash and spread or the critical hit chance. Okay, then down to final pieces, armor. If you don't have charged armor, I strongly recommend you put D5 CT. I know it adds a lot of repair time, but it adds a very high amount of concussive defense. So now see it's up to 55. I'm gonna add 3 more pieces. So from 55 now it's up to 75. Huge difference. Okay. And I'm doing all concussive because explosive is already high enough, and the target seems to do a lot more concussive than explosive damage. Okay, remember, by using D5 CT, you also gain some ship deflection. So, and that's on top of what you get from the auras. Of course, if you have charged armor, by all means, but I doubt anybody could have that many charged armor. But if you can replace at least one of these with a piece of charged armor, do so. It's going to bring down your repair and give you a charged armor pool to neutralize some of the damage. So that's one setup. Let me quickly make some changes to what I think could be another setup. Again, untested, and I'm leaving some slots open for now until I can test them. So you could just go Agility System 3 or Guidance Scrambler 3. So that's another setup. Another option is to have the evade and countermeasure loader. And if you don't have level 4, level 3 will give you almost the same bonuses, just a little bit less. Okay, same as if you have Agility System 4, you might want to go with that to get more evade. If you don't have advanced concussive payload, you can use strike warheads. If If you don't have PBX payload, use something to buff splash. Okay, and if you don't have charged armor, use the regular D5 CT. If you want to go differently, so let me show you the change here. You're at 75% concussive defense and speed, it's 46. You could go down and use Magnus Drive 3, which brings your turn down big time. So now you will turn very slowly at 30, but combat speed goes from 46 to 52. Okay, and your defense went from 75 to 71%. So I think that 4% is significant. So I'm sticking to hydraulic resistors. Okay. Now for people who like math, here's a table I put together just so you understand why it's important to have 5 ships in a hunter fleet. I mean, or 4 at least, okay? So my configuration with hydraulic resistor and the 4 D5 CT or C1 CT armor and everything, okay, gives you, and everything at R15, brings one ship to 89% explosive resistance and 75% concussive, okay, and no splash damage reduction. As you stack, so the first ship will give 1 aura to itself. Okay, already brings it up to 92.3, 82.5, and 40% splash damage reduction. Remember, the Scourge enemy mostly fires weapons that they will all do splash damage, so that's big. Don't underestimate that, that's huge. Okay, as you stack a second ship, a third ship, let's say a fourth ship, you're up from 89 explosive resistance to 97.4. And you're up from 75 concussive to 94% concussive, 19%, that's huge. Okay, same with your splash damage reduction, you go from 40% to 87%. All right. And once you add the flagship or a 5th regular one, that's where you are. After that resistance applies, so these numbers here, and you're killing most of the splash damage anyways, okay? So don't, people who are just saying, hey, my Tide Seekers can get you 99.5. Yeah, okay, but this guy first applies 92% reduction to the splash damage and then applies that resistance. So combined, you're almost at 100%. You're almost invincible here, all right? And after the whole thing, then you still have 1080 deflection, from 200 from each aura and 80 from the 4 pieces of armor. Okay, so again, this guy is a massive, awesome tank in theory. I still have to test them against the targets, but the math works. Okay, if you can and you put concussive and explosive charged armor, I'm gonna try to put 1 of each. Before everything here, you get that amount of flat damage taken from the hit. So you subtract that, and if the result is negative, you take 1. That's in the charged armor, you take a minimum damage of 1. If the hit had a damage that was, let's say, 40,000, so you take 32 off, you get 8,000 going through, then you take 95% if it's a direct hit, or you take 92% splash damage, then 95% type damage off, and from whatever's left you take 1080, and probably you're gonna be left with a negative number anyways, so you take minimum damage. Okay, so don't underestimate the hunter. Get a fleet. Okay, and I think, I'm betting this is a lot easier to drive than the Fangtooth because it's tankier. Okay, so that's it. I hope that's helpful. Any questions, post comments on my YouTube channel or on the Forsaken Council page. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you like more videos like this one, and I will release a new video of the hunter build with adjustments after I have a chance to test it against more targets. All right, take care everyone. See you around the Battle Pirate Seas.